स्वभावचिन्मयानन्दं कृपापूर्णं जगत्पतिं हरिषड्वर्गजेतारं नित्यानन्दगुरुं भजे.
Let's enter into the sutra. Mahadeva says, today Mahadeva is addressing Devi with a unique word, Shakti. If you read Gita, Krishna is using so many different names for Arjuna. Every time he uses a particular name, there is a great meaning behind. Sometimes he uses the word which will encourage him, reminding him about his great qualities. He uses the word Kutakesha. O king who have conquered sleep, now awake, just come up, open yourself, don't be foolish. And sometimes he uses the word Kaundeya, means son of Kundi, means the person Kundi was a symbol of passions. Throughout her life, she had so much of suffering. If I read the whole Mahabharata, I can't see Kundi being happy even for a single moment. Even for a single moment. Her whole life was suffering. Maybe she was happy only once when she was given a boon. She can have kids through the divine energies. Other than that, I don't see any joyful moments in her life at all. Anyhow, her whole life was a great suffering. But she lived the whole thing with deep passions and silence. She is like an emblem of passions. And here, when Krishna says Kaundeya, he is reminding you are son of Kundi, have the deep passions to understand, and when you go through some psychological turmoils. Same way, here Mahadeva is addressing Devi today as Shakti, or energy, means he is going to give her some technique, some method where she needs to remember she is energy. You are also now supposed to remember your energy before entering into the technique. Your embodiment of energy. Your body is just shell around what you are. You are energy. Your body is just a shell. Around it, you need to remember that, then enter into the technique. See all the space as if already absorbed in your own head in the brilliance. Very deeply mystical. I can say, should not be practiced by a person who is not a sincere seeker, and should be practiced by a person who is serious or sincere about the spiritual experiences. Understand? Now, this technique, today's both the technique, or even after from this part, majority of the techniques, today is 74th technique. We may have 30 more, or a few more than 30. All these techniques are supposed to be done in ashrams, only in spiritual universities. I am talking about this so that everyone will be inspired, will be aware of all these techniques and things which are available. Understand? I create ashrams around the world continuously, installing temples continuously, just for one reason. People will have place to practice all these great things. The first responsibility of a seeker, or a brahmachari, or a swami, or a devotee who comes and stays inside ashram and around the ashram, the first responsibility is to experiment with all these different techniques. First, listening to all these techniques, and seeing which one clicks. And after you feel click, the connection with someone technique, start practicing it. If you don't feel the click with any technique, better to leave the ashram. Better to do something else. When the click happens, start practicing. I am talking on all these sutras so that it can be used as a material, or people can start using this as a syllabus for studying and practicing in the ashrams around the world, which have happened, which are happening, which are yet to happen. These techniques are the unique techniques. It has to be done inside the ashrams. Why? You need a loving, caring guidance. You may not need an enlightened person's guidance directly, but you may need a loving, caring ambience. If you are fortunate enough to have that in your own house, you can do that. Because when you do these techniques, people should not shout at you, they should not call, they should not disturb you, cell phone should not ring. Sometime I have seen, only when you sit in the meditation and start, the door will bang, dung, it will open. Instead of divine darshan, you will have darshan of your spouse standing. Of course, with all the weapons in the hand and trying to distract with all possible reasons. With Nitya Dhyana or other meditation techniques, even if you are disturbed in between, nothing wrong. Either you will have a complete right result if you do it. If you don't do, you will not have that positive result. But there won't be any negative result. But these techniques, especially today's both the technique, has to be done with a lot of intensity and care. You can't be disturbed in between. You can't be disturbed in between. It takes something like a 2 cycle, means 42 minutes. Very deeply mystical. See all the space as if already absorbed in your own head, in the brilliance. Let me share some of the experiences which I had in the great spiritual universities where they were practicing these great techniques. Let me just give you one or two examples. Then you will understand the power of this technique. I was traveling near Badrinath. There is a place called Vyas Gufa where the Vyasa lived and wrote the Mahabharata, which is the longest epic, longest poem still in the planet Earth. Whenever people come and tell me Mahabharata is a myth, I tell them, relax. Actually, if somebody proves Mahabharata is a myth, we will have more respect for Vyasa. If it has happened and he has recorded, then okay, even then it's a great job. If it has not happened and he has to imagine the whole thing and write, I cannot imagine the depth of visualization what Vyasa had. Because around 100,000 slokas with more than 1,000 branch stories. Mahabharata is not just one story, 1,000 branch stories. All of them are connecting beautifully without having the flaws or any contradiction. If you are a writer, of course, if you are a writer, you will be doing strike by now. If you are a writer, you will understand how difficult it is to write just 100 pages without conflicts. For example, You may say somebody's wife, somebody's husband, somebody's name, somebody's cousin in some story, and in the other story also it has to match exactly. The attitude, incident, decisions, the characters. Creating the characters is not a joke. It's not a joke. And at least 5,000 years ago, 1,000 branch stories, with at least I can say 10,000 clearly described characters. See, if one character has to become alive in front of your eyes means, you need to read at least 20 incidents about that character. Whether his decisions, or his background, or incident happened in his life, at least 20 incident. Only then you will have a clear idea about that character. Vyasa is able to bring at least 10,000 characters in front of our eyes alive, vividly, clearly. You will have a clear idea about Duryodhana, Duschadana, or Gandhari, or the Saguni. You will have a clear idea. And not only that, very complex, paradoxical characters, especially Gandhari and all. So much of devotion to the husband means morality, but so cunning when it comes to the other side. But such a beautiful way, he was able to present the paradoxical characters. And see the character of Duryodhana's father, Dhritarashtra, supposed to be very dharmic, and was dharmic, and was taking care of the brothers' kids also, was doing everything perfect, except one place. When it came to the choice, priority between his son, his brother's son, missed. Beautiful description of characters. And Bhishma, what character, what description, what visualization. You cannot imagine. I tell you 100%, if it was imagination of Vyasa, I can promise Vyasa has the power to create the whole world. If somebody can create Mahabharata out of his imagination is so powerful, he can create whole world. He is God. If you see every unique description of characters, Saguni character and all, you can't imagine. I tell you, still the whole tradition is alive because of these great Puranas. And if you get a chance or time, take a little time and see the whole Ramayana or Mahabharata or read once after this understanding, you will understand. Now, after this description or after this introduction which I gave you, now, it can never be an imagination. If it was imagination, the Vyasa is equal to God. Vyasa is God. Because the amount of description of characters, unimaginable. And the number of incidents and different characters getting involved in different incidents. Each one of them exactly replicate their character with a clear consistency. That is another amazing thing. It is impossible to write a novel of that quality. These Puranas, thousands of slokas, thousands of characters need to be described clearly. And the whole scene has to be arranged. I cannot imagine something of this level or something of this huge visualization can happen without the original incident itself is happening. Without the original incident itself happening. It's impossible. It is impossible. We need to understand the power of those great scriptures and those great epics. Here, the Mahadeva is very beautifully describing the technique. I was talking about the universities, spiritual university and Badri. Badri is the place where Vyasa stayed and wrote the Mahabharata. That's a place I had the fortune of seeing, going and staying in a monastery where these techniques are practiced. Few monks are staying and practicing these techniques. I can say all of them were almost in the verge of enlightenment. One person was fully enlightened. The Guru was fully enlightened, but all others were in the verge of enlightenment. They were just literally playing with the power of this technique. I wanted you to understand now one important thing. Whatever I am expressing now is a truth, honest truth, which I experienced with my own eyes and ears in my own life. When I was staying there, one day morning the Guru called all the disciples, all of them were sitting, and he was talking about some of these techniques of feeling. He was talking in the angle of feeling connected to the whole Himalayas. Here Mahadeva is saying, feel connected to the whole space. They were working on a technique of feeling connected to the whole Himalayas. It was very amazing. And that Swami, that enlightened master, was loving and caring enough to allow me also into their morning session. He was asking one by one, did you practice this technique? It seems a few days before he initiated them into the technique of feeling connected to the whole Himalayas. They are supposed to constantly internalize that Himalayas is their part of the body. One Swami came and said, yes, Master, now I feel completely connected. Understand, now you need to understand. Very casually the Master said, all right, then move that rock. Understand, I promise, I saw with my eyes that Swami moved the hand and that rock moved. Very difficult. Logically very difficult. Only when you have the chance to live intimately. I had the shock and really, literally I ran away from that place. I just got up and got shaken. Completely was shaken. Ran out of that place. And that Swami started laughing. That Swami started laughing. The Master started laughing. He called me back. And he said, why you got frightened? Of course, that time not only I was not enlightened, and first time I am seeing this kind of a power over matter. See, just I have seen the small miracles like a vibhuti, materializing the ash. I have seen those things with the Master who initiated me into yoga. I have seen him materializing conch. Anything which is inside the hand, I have seen. Those things does not need a great achievement. For those things, all you need to do is the gap between your hand should become a living energy field. Then you can start materializing or teleporting. Usually it will be teleporting. Materializing does not happen usually. Very rarely I have seen creating something. Usually it will be only teleporting. And those things somehow I was able to manage. This was too much. A huge solid rock just moving. And he called me back and he said, what, you are frightened? I said, naturally. What to do? Then he says, you want to see the power of mind, just sit here. He told that Swami, that disciple who moved the rock, to hold my hand. And he told me, now you move your hand. And very funny thing, I moved the hand and rock came back to the place. very strong. Of course, this was too big shock for me. Then he told me very beautifully, it is not that only that Swami can do and you can't do. No. Anybody who can be part of that connection will be able to move. I am not saying you need to move the rock. If you just move your head, that's enough. I am not saying we need to move the rocks. I am expressing about this technique, saying about this technique, just to tell you the power of this technique. And Ramakrishna says very beautifully, when you have these powers, you are not supposed to experiment with them unless there is a living master in front of you. Ramakrishna says one of his experience, one sadhu came to him who had this kind of powers, but he was not enlightened. He wants to impress Ramakrishna. In front of Ramakrishna, this sadhu was sitting and there was a small cyclone in the ocean, in the Ganga. And all the boats started going this way and that way. Out of his power, he stopped the cyclone. Because he stopped the cyclone suddenly, many boats were not able to balance and got drowned. And few people died. Because few people died, he got the sin, the sadhu, and the power left him. Understand? It's a very, again, different, strange experience. So whenever you have this kind of experiences, it is better not to experiment unless the living master is directly staying with you. If at all you have some extraordinary experiences, the best way is witness. If it is necessary, if you have intelligence to handle, it will stay with you. Otherwise, it will leave you. It will leave you. Before entering into the technique, I want all of you to understand, only if you have a loving, caring ambience, atmosphere where you will not be disturbed, you should practice this technique. If you will be disturbed, you don't have that ambience, better not to practice.
Shivoham, Shivoham, Shivoham.